Good morning, everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks to everybody for logging in, signing in. This webinar is titled "The Government is Still Buying." Actually, I got to be honest with you. All of Orlando's workshops are really good, but I actually was looking at the panelists and I said, man, this webinar is better than I thought it would be, because I see all the panelists from Jonelle to Tasha to Karen to Moises. And of course, any workshop with Orlando, you're going to get a lot of really good information to help your business. And so just before we start, I just wanted to mention very briefly about SBDC at FIU, in case we can help you out. Florida SBDC at FIU is under FIU's College of Business, and we focus on business growth. So we focus on helping you get capital, hire more employees, increase your revenues. And we do that through a team of business specialists. And actually, we do have a business specialist focused on government contracting. We have a couple of other folks that help in those areas as well. And I want you to think in terms of government contracting, not just about securing contracts, but also getting the capital to help you maintain the contract, to basically service the contract, hiring the right people, focusing on your operations, things like that. So definitely think of us if we can help you out. The best part is the price. It's no cost to you. We are an SBA research partner, and also we receive state funding and also funding from the Department of Defense for procurement PTAC assistance. So if you can benefit from our services, definitely feel free to reach out, sbdc.fiu.edu, or by now you're fast friends with Brianna, so you can email Brianna and she'll give you all the information to get registered. And I don't want to take more of your time. I just want to thank Orlando for organizing the webinar, and also want to really thank our rockstar panel of specialists and experts, because I think it's going to be a great webinar. So with that, I'll turn it over to Orlando.
Thank you so much, Brian. Listen, this is a great and amazing morning. I will give you fair warning that we may go over a little, maybe a lot, because once we were putting all of this together, we wanted to make sure that we gave you as much information. So feel free if you have to log off because you are running a business. And if not, please stay on. We're going to try to answer everyone's question, but we do have a full, I guess, buffet of content and information. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and have the panelists go ahead and introduce themselves and share a little bit about themselves. So let's go ahead and just start with Jonelle.
Good morning, Janelle Hine. I'm with the Small Business Administration. Been around a long time, 29 years with the agency, and have helped businesses with a variety of sources. The SBA is one of the main agencies that assists small businesses. We're not the only one, but you may have heard our name in the news recently. It's possible, with disaster assistance. However, we do more than that. Obviously, as Brian said, we rely on our resource partners like the Small Business Development Center to assist small businesses. Yeah, like I said, I have been with the agency a long time, but I've never owned my own small business. So I'm not the best person to tell you how to start your business, how to operate your business, how to run your business. What I can assist you with is the programs that the SBA has. Those are for capital access. Those are for contracting assistance and exporting assistance. And then obviously the disaster assistance that we do. Thank you.
And thank you, Janelle. Tasha.
I am Tasha. I am a government advocate. We do PR, marketing, a lot of government contracting experience.
Yeah, and Tasha, check your connection just to see. I don't know how connection is going to be today, because I know you sounded a little, robotic in your response. Yeah, and that was me yesterday on another webinar that I was on. So if I just as an FYI, connection wise. And thank you. Yeah. So Karen.
Good morning. My name is Karen Vieira. I'm owner of the Med Writers. We are a team of mostly PhD scientists and medical doctors, and we write in the healthcare, pharmaceutical, supplement, health and wellness industries. And so what that looks like for us is that there are several government agencies that buy what we sell, because we do marketing writing as well as technical writing. And so there's a lot within the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as Department of Defense, that need what we sell. And we'll get into that soon.
Thank you, Karen. And Moises.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Moises Montañez from Alta Quality Builders. We're a general contracting firm, a full service remodeling and renovation company that specializes in living and working spaces, to be specific. And we've been, actually, we're a product of the SBA when we went through the first Emerging Leading program. And that's when we got introduced to federal contracting and government contracting with the Miami-Dade County Public Schools. And currently we actually are a contractor in their job order contracts for their maintenance and repairs. And we're going on our third year there. So we could give you a little bit of more insight down the road as Orlando approaches us. So we're on the opposite end. We're actually executing.
And thank you. And as Brian mentioned, my name's Orlando. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Listen, thank you so much for a lot of you, the attendees that I've been seeing your name. Eddie, Nudka. There's a lot of you that actually been attending all of these workshops. So thank you so much for joining us on this ride and so forth. And Tasha is coming back on. She's trying to make sure her connection works and so forth. So without further ado, let's go in and actually, you know what, ask some questions. And these are questions that we want you to ask yourself. You know, does the government need what you sell? Everybody wants to come in and sell to the government, but if there isn't a need there, what's going to happen is that you're going to be spinning your wheels. So you need to ask yourself that question, understand who your customers would be, who is your competition, what makes you as a business owner unique to the government. Is your business eligible? That's another thing that we want to make sure that you ask yourself, you know, and where do you belong in this space? Remember, the government does not buy. It is individual government employees that buy. You're dealing with people, not entities. So I don't know if any of the panelists have any other questions that you may want to ask the attendees moving forward. So, and more so, these are just questions that we want you to ask yourself to identify what your business is, what it's all about, and if the government is really going to be buying what it is that you sell and so forth. So if any of the panelists have any questions that they want to ask now, if not, we can go ahead and move on.
Orlando, one thing I would say here, this is Tasha, is to make sure that you can fulfill the scope of work for whatever you're trying to go after. Do you know, ask yourself, can I do this? Can my company do this by themselves, or do I need to partner with people? Do I need to get another company to work with me to fulfill a certain portion of the scope? So I would say, you know, just make sure that you're thoroughly qualified for every task that's listed in the scope of services. And if not, you know, you need to partner with somebody to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to mention, Orlando, definitely make sure you're ready for it. Make sure you have the capital, that your operations are in order, that you have the right team. Because a lot of businesses might have a really good product or service, but they don't have they're not there yet. They're not ready for prime time. So I think that's what I was going to throw out too.
And I agree. And I think that that's one of the main things that we hear a lot of businesses. Oh, I want to do business with the government. I want to do business with the government. And my question always is, who are your customers and who are your client right now? And I think that that's one of the main things that we need to ask. And listen, Tasha, you sounded phenomenal. I really heard you with that. So I think rebooting and coming back.
My connection is better now. So.
Orlando, just real quick, to piggyback on what you're saying, it's not something that you jump into lightly, for sure. You need to be well researched. We're going to cover that in a couple of slides. But you have to remember that unless you have a very unique product or service, the government probably already has a vendor that they're using. So where you can stand out is to differentiate yourself, whether it's through your customer service means, whether there's other, maybe supply chain differentiates you from what your other competitors are. It's very important to understand who's been doing it before and how you can set yourself apart from them.
And I agree. Go ahead, Moises.
Talking about that a little bit, it's really important that you do identify who your customer is, because you might be thinking that the federal government is your customer, but if you're not ready yet, maybe your customer is the prime contractor that's supplying the product to the government. So he is the one or she is the one that you need to target your product to and your services. So that way you can get your foot in the door. You start getting the experience, you as a subcontractor, then you work your way into the actual federal government as a prime contractor or a supplier. So that's really, really important to identify who your true customer is.
Yeah, and that's always vital. That's always important. Karen.
Yeah, on this first slide, there's so much we could jump into, but I know we're going to go deep on some of the other slides, so I'm not going to go too deep on this one. But I just wanted to say that with all of our webinars that we do, that it's really useful to have an interactive discussion, because we have so much information we can give to you. But if we don't know what your business is or what your struggles are, we can't help you. So feel free, everybody, to go in the Q&A. And right now, real quick, just type in what type of business you have or what type of product you sell, what type of service you provide. And then that way, as we continue with the discussion, it can be a little more interactive, because we each have different perspectives and have worked with different types of businesses and help people in different industries figure this out. So then for me, for example, we write proposals for a lot of different types of companies. I can then tailor some of my answers to give you examples that might be very relevant to your business.
Right. Yeah. And thank you. And also, you know what? And thank you for saying that, Karen, because I think that one of the key things is right now that we want to make sure that all of these webinars that we're putting together, they're actually going to come in and assist and help you to scale and grow your business. I think that's one of the main things that we're looking at. So let's go ahead and just start. Let's leap into the next slide. So one of the things that we want to make sure that you understand as a business owner, you definitely are going to have to make an assessment of what your business is. It's going back to basic. Once you started your business years ago, a lot of times businesses have evolved and shifted and changed. And now if you want to do business with the federal government, or, even during, the current, pandemic or situation that we're in, we want to make sure that you evaluate your products and services. We also want to make sure that you evaluate the needs of the government, because I've heard a lot of people come in and say, well, I just want to sell to the government. Well, what do you want to sell? Well, I don't know. What do they need? I think that this is something that you need to ask yourself. Find out who the buyers are, and procurement managers, users. What sets you apart from the competition? I think that that's one of the main things right now. What makes you unique? What makes you special? And are you committed? Let me tell you that a lot of this is going to require you to build relationships, build rapport, ask questions. The one thing that you cannot do is to sit back and say, oh, by the way, I've got this to offer. But if nobody knows what it is that you have to offer, then unfortunately, that commitment is going to fall on the wayside, because we want you to be committed to actually see this through. And the other thing is, can you perform the work? You don't want to be blacklisted because you got a contract and now, lo and behold, now you cannot perform it. So that's one of the things that you have to keep in mind, and spend a lot of time just figuring out what it is that you sell, and who are the offices and who are the agencies. Because I think that a lot of times moving forward, you may even look at probably into going into a smaller contract or what have you, or partnering, to Moises' point. And Tasha and Karen and I will talk a lot about that as business owners, and Jonelle will definitely share some insight in that. But just assess and make sure that you move forward. So, and listen, for all of the panelists, I've been looking right now. So if I see you unmute, I'm just going to call on you, because I know you have something to say. So Jonelle, you're unmuted, so go first.
Yeah, I'm muted. I'm just staying unmuted. But a key thing is to, again, assess your strengths and weaknesses. If there's a reason that you can't do a portion of the contract or portions of the contract, as Tasha said, it may be an ideal situation where you start a teaming agreement with somebody. You need to know, like you said, what sets you apart from the competition, but also what's the need of the agency. Because remember that the contracts are written by contracting officers, but they have an end user in mind. And if you can get to the end user to figure out exactly what they're looking for, you may be able to help define what that need is and make sure that you can actually fill it. There's a lot of opportunities to get to know these people, although I will tell you that the procurement staff, for at least for federal, has shrunk severely in the last several years. So there's fewer and fewer phone calls. You might get an email, but a lot of times the individual agencies, and here I'm talking about federal agencies, have buying days. Although I know Miami-Dade County does it as well, so as the city of Miami. So you need to avail yourself of those opportunities just to get maybe a 5-minute face-to-face. They've said that many times it can take, 7 to 10 times of meeting somebody before they actually decide to go with you for a particular contract. And we're going to talk about contracts a little bit later. I know the types of contracts, but be aware that there's different ways that people buy, and make sure that you can fulfill that need as well. If you take credit cards, micro contracts are really good. It's like a purchase order. It's very easy to do. Most businesses are comfortable with that. But there are some entities that have credit cards that will go up to $150,000, $250,000. So again, if you can take credit cards, if you have that mechanism, again, that gives you a competitive edge over those that don't.
Yeah, and thank you, Jonelle. I think that that's one of the main things that we have to look at. So Karen.
Yeah, I think this slide is really the key jumping off point for most small businesses. If you haven't sold to any type of government entity before, you haven't been involved in government at all, and you're just coming in cold, because that's where I was in 2015. In 2015, I said, I'm tired of the feast and famine cycle that small businesses go through. Like, I had a busy season and I had a slow season, and I was like, I don't want seasons. I just want work all the time. How do I do that? And in my head, I was like, I need either some very big corporate contracts, or somebody said, why don't you go government? And I said, government? I don't know how to sell to the government. I'm just a little tiny business. And I didn't know the government bought from little tiny businesses. I thought they bought from huge, Cheney brothers. So it's a whole process of just researching, learning what's out there, learning the language. It's a whole other language that they speak. They don't speak English, I promise you. And Jonelle can, she can give you all the jargon, but it was a process for me. And it took from 2015, when I started investigating and learning about it, till 2018, maybe 2017, I've lost track, for me to get my first contract. So it was not like this, but that's because sometimes I'm slow to learn things. I will admit it. So we're here trying to help you, get past that learning curve. And so the first step, if you guys are brand new, you've got to read, you've got to get on webinars like this. You've got to learn everything you can, immerse yourself in the world of who you want to sell to. So for me, I wanted to sell to the Department of Health and Human Services, specifically National Institutes of Health, FDA, which is Food and Drug Administration, CDC, those types of agencies. And I got on every webinar, I read everything I could, and I figured out, do they even buy what I sell? What are they buying? And back then it was a website called FBO. Now FBO has become beta.sam.gov, and we'll talk about that more on the next slide. But I just got on there and just read every single solicitation that was put out. And there was tons of things on there that weren't solicitations. I didn't even know what they were. So this is what I mean, that it just takes a while to read and figure out what these things are. There's tons of courses where you can learn the jargon, learn what you need to look for, learn, and ask any one of us, ask specific questions. We'll jump in the Q&A in a little while and start answering specific questions. But yeah, figure this stuff out, because it's very important to know this before you just jump in hot and heavy and you're saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, going at the wrong person.
Yeah, and thank you, Karen, for sharing that. I do believe commitment to whatever it is that you're doing is vital. Moises.
Yeah, spinning off of what Karen said, it's really important that you identify what's your product and what's your service. and it's like everything. Nobody's going to give you $100,000 contract if they don't know who you are. Or even, I'm talking 100,000, forget about the $1 million contracts. If you are, so you, like say on local contracts, in our case, and I'm gonna take myself as an example, I said, I'm not gonna jump into the federal government right off the bat if I don't have past performance experience. How can I show that I have some past performance experience? How can I get into the game? So we got us certified under the Miami-Dade County Public Schools and Miami-Dade County as an SBE and a minority-owned business. So now there were some set-asides and I got myself, my foot in the door. But they were really small contracts, $5,000, $10,000, until they found and they knew who we were. Now we're getting into the $100,000, $250,000 contracts with the Miami-Dade County, and we currently have a contract with the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, as I mentioned before, for maintenance, and it's a $250,000 contract that could go up to $400,000 on a yearly basis. And we just got renewed again. So if you have to find your wiggle room in there to get the past performance experience, learn what is required to do all the paperwork, because believe it or not, sometimes the paperwork is harder than the actual work, or so how do you supply the materials and everything else you have to supply. In construction, we have certified payroll. We have all these other things that we have to comply with as far as our audits. So you have to make sure that you understand all that before you jump in, because you might make money at the upfront, and then at the back end, you're going to lose it because you get penalized because you didn't pay people the right wages or whatever else. So really, really do your research. Like Karen said, make sure that you understand whom you're working for. And if you don't want to jump into the federal government, you can work with the local agencies until you get you feel comfortable, and then work into the federal government.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, because I think that one of the main things is that a lot of small businesses overcomplicate everything. And one of the things that I love to do is to just simplify. Don't overthink, don't overcomplicate. I know that Tasha and we talk a lot about, on a weekly basis, the same way with Karen and Jonelle and Moises, because it's constant conversations that we're having. And I think that that's one of the key things that we were chit-chatting and talking about, just yesterday with Tasha. And I know, Tasha, that you do a lot of contracting with specific, municipalities, entities. And if you can elaborate on that, because that's another thing. Tasha identified her, services, and from there she just started expanding into other areas. But if you can share a little bit about that, Tasha.
Right. So we started out doing a lot of work in transportation, doing a lot of community outreach and things like that. And then we started pivoting into taking not just, roadway projects. We started doing a lot in aviation and expanding there. And then we started focusing a lot on affordable housing and different areas where we thought, okay, our experience with government can help us stand out. So far we've probably, I would say, worked on 70, 80 government contracts that we can say, okay, here's our past performance. But we started out in one thing, and then we sort of branched into other areas of the government. So that's one of the things. You can start, with, let's say, a DOT contract, a small DOT contract. That can morph into, okay, there's 3 more DOT contracts, but now there's a municipality that's working with DOT that's also going to put out a contract. You can bid for that, and it just starts to mushroom from there, at least for us. And that, I would say, like 75% of our business is the government contracts that we have. And so, I think one of the biggest things that I would say on this slide is getting certified. And I know we're going to talk about that in other slides as well, but things to set yourself apart from the competition that we found is certifications, DBE, SBE. Any certification that you can get that your competitor doesn't have is going to set you apart from everybody else. And that's whenever I talk about this, about government contracting, I'm always like, please get these different certifications. It does take a lot of work, and Moises is right. Sometimes getting the certification is more work than getting the actual contract and putting the proposal together, but it's worth it in the end because it takes so much work. A lot of people aren't going to do it, and a lot of companies don't have the certification, but it definitely does set you apart and gets you noticed by the municipality, because a lot of them have goals tied to specific certifications. And if you have that, then you're helping them meet a goal. So you're not only serving the need of whatever they need for the solicitation, you're also helping them meet their numbers on a certification side.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Tasha. I think that that's one of the main things that we have to look at is assess everything, look at everything. And then once you go into this aspect, you're going to be well-informed and well-prepared. And go into, networking, talking about your business and what you know. So that's one of the key things also, that we want to highlight is research the marketplace, who's buying what you sell. And we actually touch about that a little bit. And we have talked about the city, county, state, and federal level, to everyone's point, you start small and then you expand and you grow, because the last thing that you want to do is get a contract that you cannot fulfill. Also look at timing. When is it that contracts are going on? one thing that I think we're going to actually, and we didn't add here, but is to organize yourself. Look at dates when a submission has to be provided. I know that I've spoken to, to Karen and Tasha many times when it's late and they're still working on, a proposal that it's due. And I think that that's one of the things is seizing those opportunities. And once again, know the competition. Why do you know the competition? Simple. Because a lot of times, to everyone's point, you may want to come in as a sub and provide your services because maybe I know that Tasha and Karen, have actually submitted proposals where I've been included, and we've had dialogue and conversations because of the specialization that we have. The one thing is that you have to start looking at creating a strategy, because at the end of the day, the government is not coming in and looking at their return on investment. They don't want to come in and you say, hey, I can market you by XYZ. The marketplace is pretty much you coming in and seeing how you can actually fulfill a need that they have, how competent and capable you are, and how you can actually make their lives easier and better. And I know that with a lot of the entities that I've worked with a lot of the agencies, now they're asking me if I can actually bring other people that have a specialization in a specific field or area in order to assist and help them. And I think that that's one of the main things that we definitely need to do, because I know it's going on and just researching. So let's go ahead, Jonelle, because you said you were going to stay on mute, so I'm going to keep picking on you with your 29 years of experience in federal government.
Okay, so I wanted to say a couple of things. So we're not saying that there's seems to be a natural progression between city, county, state, federal, that type of level of contracting. None of them are easier than the other. Each of them have their own rules and regulations. Each of them have their own alphabet soup. We were hearing things like DBE and SBE, and we have 8A and we have HubZone. And so there's a lot of letters that can help you to differentiate yourself and stand out. But where we say know the competition, it's helpful because if you happen to be a WOSB, which is the Women-Owned Small Business Contracting Program that we do, or an ED WOSB, which is an Ed WOSB, economically disadvantaged women-owned small business. In order to get a set aside in that particular program, there has to be, the contracting officer has to certify that there's at least 2 companies that have that certification that can actually apply or try for that contract, submit a proposal. So it's good to know that there are other people in your industry that have the same certifications. So again, knowing the competition is helpful. Subcontracting, obviously. That's an excellent way to get your foot in the door, as you say, to get to understand as a subcontractor, you're feeding into the prime, you can understand what the prime has to submit. So it's just furthering your education that way. The timing is the one that I wanted to talk about because we do have a program. I mentioned our 8A program. That's a 9-year program. Depending on what type of contracts you're going for, the timing of when you get approved for certain certifications can be critical. So if you're going through 8A, you only have 9 years. Many of those contracts are written for 5 years at a time. So if you're looking for a larger one where you may have a joint venture or something like that, the timing is critical on when you get the certification, so you're not wasting that time. You don't want to enter only to find out they just awarded a contract that would have been beneficial to you, and you have to wait out 5 years until they have another onboarding, if you will. We have local resources here. Brian mentioned the PTAC. We have local PTACs at all of our small business development centers, and they can help you not only with federal, but also local contracting, explaining the alphabet soup. So you're not having to walk through this alone. Orlando, you often say that being a business owner is a lonely journey. We're here to tell you what resources are available and that it doesn't have to be a lonely journey.
Yeah, and I agree. Listen, I have built my business by way of relationships, understanding that I don't know everything. And to your point, Jonelle and Brian, the SBDC has been a great source of resources for me personally. Especially with PTAC and so forth. I think that that's one of the main things that we have to understand, that if you don't know something, ask, inquire. I don't know everything, and I can actually listen and hear, and that's where I think a lot of us have to come into that level and take an in-depth look at where we're at. Moises, if you can share a little bit about your experience, because I really enjoyed what you said. You started small, you researched, and then from starting small, you went into something bigger. But I think that that's where a lot of businesses, they want to start big, not knowing that they can't fulfill. So if you can talk about that. And Karen, I did see you on mute, but I wanted Moises to go ahead and just share, because I think that this is so vital to the attendees.
Yeah, thank you, Orlando. Going back to what I said previously, when we first did our market research, we said, how can we get into the federal government? We noticed that one of the biggest hurdles was the past performance experience. If you don't have no experience in the federal government or nobody to document what you have done in the past, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get in and get a contract. You could write something that is similar on the private side, but if we're looking for larger contracts, and I'm thinking larger over $100,000, it's like everything. You're not going to bring somebody into your property to do a job if you don't have some type of resume or they've been in business, because it's not the same thing as getting somebody in to do a $100 repair and somebody doing a $10,000 repair. So it all depends where you're at in your business, and that's why we specifically targeted the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, because they were very, very friendly. At that time, Mr. Brian Williams was in, and he was very helpful in the outreach system. So we got certified. We went in. We basically did our first job at no profit because we wanted to get our foot in the door, and they wanted to see who we were. And once we did that one, we just snowballed. We got inquired by other prime contractors, and we started doing work for 3 or 4 different, which I won't mention, just to make sure that we don't go into any legality. But these prime contractors then started to reach out, because they talk among each other. They say, hey, if you want to get a good subcontractor that's able to do the job and able to perform, so get this company, especially when they have issues and they're trying to get, they had somebody was a low bidder, and that low bidder now can't perform. So they'll call you, you give them your price, and 99% of the time they'll pay you what you're asking for, because they're in a crunch. So you get that job done, and they say, hey, this is a small contractor that could get the job done, and they move fast and they're organized. And make sure you're organized and you can perform, because the last thing you want to do is go onto the job site and say, oh, I'm sorry, you're scheduled to start on Tuesday, but I can't go because I have another job. Oh, I can't do this because I have another deadline. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. If you commit to a date, you commit to a date, and you do what you're supposed to do. I can't emphasize that enough, not only on the government side, but also on the private sector, because it talks about you and your company. Then you start scaling up. We started as a subcontractor under a prime. Now we're doing jobs directly with the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, because it's organic. It's incredible, because they talk among the agencies. And we got pulled into the public housing. The first job that we did was an emergency repair for public housing. And now we've done several jobs for public housing that we've been a prime. And as the word gets out, Human and Healthcare Department calls us. Now we're being called by, actually, FDOT. We got certified there, and they're sending us opportunities that we could bid on. What I don't have is enough time to bid all these jobs, so which is a good thing to be in. But you continue to grow organically, but you have to know that you have to come in at a certain level. You have to perform, and then you organically grow. Like the same thing that happened with Tasha. Tasha came into one agency, and she crossed over to another agency. And I'm pretty sure that now the volume that she has on her contracts or on her projects are a lot larger than when she first started out, because now she has a name for herself. She knows she's a small business, woman-owned business that could perform and get the job done. And they help not only on the performance, but also they can meet the qualifications and the requirements that they have for small businesses, which is a lot of times 8 to 10%, depending on whatever the requirements are. Because even though these jobs are set aside, depending if they're on the locality, they might need to have a women-owned business, a service-disabled veteran-owned business, SBE business, or in this case, if it's a hub zone, what they do is in Miami-Dade County, they don't call it hub zone, but you have to use an area that's economically depressed. You have to use the people locally, 20%, for example, of local labor on that particular area within a 7-mile radius. So things like that happen, which is similar to the hub zone.
Yeah.
I can't emphasize enough that you have to start you have to pick the project that you want, and you might get lucky to get that $1 million project, but set your expectations a little bit lower so that way you get your foot in the door, you perform, and then you could ask for a little bit more.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I think that that's the main thing. You were going to say something, Janelle, or?
Yeah, Moises, you can also speak to, most of the time the modification is done by the government entity, right? It's not necessarily
Right.
because you need the change, it's because they need the change.
Mhm.
So again, setting your
Absolutely.
expectations to understand how government contracting works so that you're not like thrown for a loop. As you say, you can't start the job because you got another job going on. Well, you got to get another crew. I mean, that's just what the government, whether it's local or federal, is expecting.
Correct.
Yeah, you have to perform, and I think that, listen, to Moises' point, I said Moises is the relationship builder. I thought that I was good. I mean, Moises, does way better than I do when it comes to the relationships. I don't think he's ever met a stranger, but I think that that's one of the key things that we're talking about is building that, that relationship. So Karen, I know that you're somewhat shy, but I know that you want to go and share.
Very shy. I'm so shy. Oh my goodness. I'll just jump on here because I've been kind of monitoring the Q&A, and there's one question that came in so far that I think is really relevant to answer in this slide. And so I'll answer a couple of things. But for AJ's question, asking about how to figure out if the government is spending on what he is selling, the specific tool you want to use, and we'll jump into this again in future slides, but the specific tool you would want to use, AJ, is go to a website called beta.sam.gov. And so beta is BETA, SAM, S-A-M, and .gov. And when you go in there, and I recommend everybody go in here. This is like the gold mine, okay? So if you've never been on beta.sam.gov, this is what you need to do today. This is your homework. Go in there. At the top, there's a big search box. They make it so you cannot be confused. And there's a drop down, and it basically asks you what you're looking for. And you're going to scroll down to contract opportunities, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for opportunities for contracts. So once you go in there and you select contract opportunities, type into that box some keywords. Pretend you're in Google and you're looking for work. What would you type? So for AJ's example that he put in the box, he's looking for HIPAA risk analysis, for example, or HIPAA assessments. You type that in the box and you see, is there anything there? Now, once you type and you get data, what I would tell you is that list is sorted like it doesn't make any sense at all. So if you have more than just a handful of results, at the right side, I would recommend where it says sort by, that you sort by last updated date. And what that's going to give you is whatever is the newest first, because you don't want to see what happened in 2016 necessarily. You want to see what's happening now. Now you're going to get a variety of things in these results. The first thing that you're going to get is something called a pre-solicitation. A pre-solicitation, or a sources sought, is where the government is researching but has not yet put out a solicitation for you to bid on. They just want to know who's out there. You want to get in on these. This is how I got my first contract. I responded to a pre-solicitation. I had no past performance in the government. All that stuff that Moises said, I didn't do. I totally just showed up like, hey, never worked for you guys before, never been a sub, don't have a clue what I'm doing, hey. And I got a contract because I came in on that sources sought pre-solicitation knowing what I was talking about. I came in as the expert. I responded and said, we've done this for these small business entities. We've done the exact same thing. Look at what we've published here. Look at what we've published here. We've done this exact same thing for this other company. I'm an author on this site. We can push some of your content out on this other site that can get you publicity for your new government website that you're trying to build up. And I just came in hot and heavy knowing what I was talking about though on this sources sought. So when
you did have past performance experience. You were
well, I did, just not in the government.
And the government, but you did have.
Sub. I didn't have any work as a sub. I hadn't worked for county, state, local, nothing. I only had private sector experience. So I came in kind of looking green, but I knew what I was talking about on that pre-solicitation or sources sought. And I showed that our company was an expert and that I was an expert. And then when that solicitation came out, of course, the contracting officer emailed me as soon as she posted it and said, it's live on FBO. That's back when it was FBO and not beta.sam. And then I came in and bid. So when you go through these, sources sought are a gold mine, pre-solicitations. You get in while they're trying to figure out what they need to put out in their RFP or their RFQ, which is request for proposal or request for a quote. You want to get in at this early stage. So those are the gold mines to look for. The second contract I got, so that first one was like a $200,000 contract. Second contract I got, I did not respond to a sources sought or a pre-solicitation. I found in the same beta.sam, well, when it was FBO, I found a solicitation that I responded to. So you don't always have to respond to the pre-solicitation in order to get awarded at the solicitation level, but it is a foot in the door. That one, the second one I got was a $600,000 contract, and that was with Department of Defense. And that one I came in again, looking like I knew what I was talking about, having done the same work before, having a team of subcontractors that were experts as well, and being the lowest bidder or one of the lowest bidders. You don't always have to be the lowest bidder. You have to be the lowest bidder who is technically capable of doing the work. So that's, hopefully that answers AJ's questions and a few other questions that were in the chat while still kind of sticking to the topic on this slide.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I know that that's one of the things that right now that we actually are all looking for, specifically your information. I do want to answer one question live, that listen, the SBA, the SBDC, PTAC, one thing is that keep in mind that as a business owner, you do need resources and you do need help. And not only do you need the resources that they provide right now, because it may not be specific to government contracting, but it's making sure that you understand that your business is a fine-tuned instrument in order to move forward. So aside from PTAC, I do know that the no-cost consulting that the SBDC has is to assist you and help you in all areas. But one thing that we will encourage you is to build relationships and rapport with other entities. There's a lot of good people out there that are willing to help you. And I know a lot of competitors that are willing to go in and work with you and so forth. I know that in the past, you know, Tasha and I, we've gone in and we've presented, you know, to numerous, you know, entities by way of the proposals that she submitted and so forth. So if you can elaborate a little bit on that, Tasha, you know, many adventures.
Yes, Orlando and I have had many adventures together in government contracting, but one of the things I would say is a lot of the times with the municipalities, it's one thing to put in the written proposal and get through that, and now they want to actually see you in person. So now you have to take your team, you've got to present everything you presented in the original written proposal. Now you have to present this to the same people who you're going to be working with, and they want to see you live. In the age of Corona, they've now been doing a lot of, you know, Zoom presentations and things like that, but usually you'll have to go in and physically meet with people, present your information, and let them see you and present your team. So it's not just, you know, filling out the written proposal and getting the contract. That's great. Most of the time, you will have to come in for some sort of, you know, presentation or meeting with them before you are actually awarded that contract. So that's something to remember as well. Most municipalities and governments like DOT, they're not just going to award you the contract. You're going to have to come in and make a presentation and tell them, you know, why you're the best and elaborate on your written proposal.
Yeah, and that's good. I think that that's one of the main things also is, aside from those relationships, you know what, it's also, you know, building rapport. I mean, I know Moises, you wanted to answer Javier's question, you know, in regards to the service disabled veteran.
Orlando, before you jump to Moises, I just wanted to say on your last point, definitely take advantage of all the resources. Take advantage of SBA, take advantage of SBDC, PTAC. Obviously, I'm shameless plug for us, but also there's other programs like Emerging Leaders, like Startup FIU Procurement. There's a lot of other really great programs in the community that aren't going to cost you anything, but you do have to put the time in. And it's a good way for you also to build up your networks like you guys are talking about, where you can meet other businesses in your industry and other industries that might be of service to you. So shameless plug to Emerging Leaders and some of the SBA programs, because I think those are great programs to mention, and definitely a good way to get some networks to build up.
Yeah, and just as an FYI, all of the participants here, the SBA has a program, the Emerging Leader, and it's a 7-month program that I've had the honor of actually being an instructor since 2016. I know Moises is a 2014 graduate alumni, but everyone that's on the call are people that have actually, have built relationships, because we understand the value of information. So Moises, go ahead. I know you wanted to answer Javier's question live. So let's go ahead.
Yes, one of the things that I'm going to suggest is that you get your CVE certification, and that's the certification for veteran entity, and that's awarded by the federal government. Actually, what happens with that, once you get that CVE certification, you're actually saying that I am the owner, I manage the company, and with that certification, there's several agencies like the VA hospital and other agencies like FAA that have set asides for companies that are CVE certified. But with that CVE certified, you could also take it to some of the local municipalities. When I went to Miami-Dade County Public Schools and I go back, I showed them my CVE certification, and they automatically certified me as a service disabled veteran for their certification process. So it made it a lot easier. So if you get that CVE certification, it makes your life a lot easier for other certifications to get your foot in the door into different areas. And you could also help with the set-asides. There's projects that are put set-asides, plus if there's a prime contractor that has a set-aside, you could still help him comply, because he still has to perform 51% of the work. But if you are a service disabled veteran, you could help him fulfill his 51% of self-performance. Hopefully that'll answer the question.
Yeah, and thank you. And that actually leads us to the registration and certifications. I know a lot of you are asking questions specifically about that. Once again, referring to making the assessment before you leap, do not go crazy registering and getting certified on 5,000 different websites and so forth. Once you create your game plan, then you build on that. To Karen's point, Karen went in, and a lot of you were asking for, the actual domain, and it is beta.sam, and you'll see it on the screen now, .gov. But make sure that you start with these registrations that are simplified. And also be very mindful. A lot of people are going to come in and try to get you certified for X amount of money. As a business owner, you need to decide for yourself what you are willing to pay, not pay. I've heard of people charging $10,000 to have someone register on sam.gov, which is a free registration. And if you want to give money away, you know what, maybe donate it to a nonprofit or something, or give it to us. But I think that's the main thing, that you have to know. You have to know your business inside and out. And then once you do, connect and be very, this is a year of intention. You have to be very intentional of how you want to grow your business, how you want to scale your business, and be intentional with the relationships that you build, with the people that you interact and talk to, because I think that's going to be the main thing that we want you to do to achieve the level of success and so forth. So my thing is that right now, registration, and certifications are great and awesome, but be very specific. Karen, I saw you waving your hands,
I said, if they're giving money away, I'll take it. I don't need more money, but I mean, who wouldn't take it if you want to give it away? And Orlando and I, talked about this somewhat jokingly over the years, because like he mentioned, we met in that 2016 Emerging Leaders class. I'm a graduate of that class, and all of us are, obviously Jonelle is leading and Orlando is leading the class, but Tasha and Moises are both graduates as well from different years than myself. But seriously, all jokes aside, some people do pay for help with registrations and certifications because it's just brand new and they don't have a clue and they feel overwhelmed by it. And I understand that. And there are, legitimate reasons to reach out to somebody for help with this. And my company does help some people with this. You know, we've helped people with 8A certifications over the years for a very affordable fee compared to what some people are charging. But I tell people all the time, if you can do it yourself, don't pay somebody. Sure, I can hold your hand on my team and we can help you, but I can't find your paperwork. So what registration is going to involve, like, let's talk about sam.gov. So beta.sam.gov is the website where you're looking for solicitations and pre-solicitations to respond to. But sam.gov, which same website, the government's doing a funky thing here. I don't know what they're trying to do. We don't know where they're going with this. But sam.gov is a separate site, but connected, obviously, on the same domain, where you go and you register. If you're not registered in sam.gov, you cannot get a federal contract. This is where you register to say, I am a vendor to the federal government. And there's a lot of information to enter in there. So if you came to my company and you told us, how much will you charge me to register me on sam.gov, and we give you a price, that is not the end. You don't just hand us money and you're registered, because I don't know your business. I don't know what you do. I don't know your address. I don't know your phone number. I don't know who receives the money, who's the accounting person in your company, your bank account that you want the direct deposit to go to. I'm going to ask you 1,000 questions, and I will literally just be going through the questionnaire in sam.gov. So if you want to pay me to do it, you still have to come up with the information. So you could as well do it yourself. If you need a consultant, somebody to help you when you get stuck, I would recommend going to Brian and his team. That's what I did. When I was registering, I filled it all out myself. And then I made an appointment and I went in my local SBDC and I sat with, I can't remember if it was Carol or Jackie. I think it was Jackie, because I'm in Palm Beach County. I'm not in Miami-Dade. And I sat with Jackie, and Jackie went through and said, I don't think you filled this out right. Let's change this, which is fine. And there's no fee for that. So use the SBDC. Don't give your money away if you don't have to. Those guys actually know what they're talking about. So the outside consultants are great, but I would reserve using them for things that you can't do yourself. And then with the certifications, it gets a little more tricky. I've helped a bunch of companies do their 8A. Like Jonelle said, don't jump in and get 8A if you're not ready for it, if you don't have a plan as to how to use it. A lot of people told me to get certified 8A, and I did, because I didn't know. Like, somebody told me, don't do it yet, you're not ready. And then somebody else said, why are you not 8A? You should be 8A. You're minority owned, you're women owned. You have all these other certifications, EdWOSB, which Jonelle talked about. I had a whole list, and I had through the state. You can get registered through the state, and I put the myflorida.com site there where you can go in there. You can register as a vendor to the state of Florida. You can get, the state of Florida also has minority business entity, I think they call it MBE, women-owned business entity, WBE, small business entity. So they have different letter designations, but you can get registered on certified through them, completely free, no cost at all. I can't talk to about Miami-Dade, registration and certifications, because I haven't done it personally, but I do know that in my county, and Miami is probably the same, you can get registered as a small business, certified as a small business, and women-owned and minority-owned and all that, through the school districts. And I don't know if they still do it for free, but they used to. When I got started in 2015, 2016, they were doing it for free. And it doesn't cost anything to get registered with them. And then the county will acknowledge that as a certification that you have of being a small business, a minority-owned business, a woman-owned business, etc. Hopefully that answers your questions.
The outreach departments for all of those different agencies, they have a small business outreach department. You could just find them and they'll help you through the entire process.
Yeah, and a lot of them are actually right now interconnecting and working. To Karen's point, is that one certification actually works with, I know here in the county, Miami-Dade County and the school board, they're actually working together in unification for the purpose of getting, the registration. I know a lot of you are asking questions, when it comes to the registration and certification. A lot of times with a lot of the entities, like with myflorida.com. I registered, and the only thing that I did was I registered with them. I didn't have any certification. I don't have any certifications. With the same way with Beta, the sam.gov, I'm registered with sam.gov as well. Keep in mind that a lot of this is coming in and making sure that you get the process started. With sam.gov, I have to renew every year and update information and content, but it's there because what I've been doing is gradually moving in and not overthinking and overcomplicating it. Because like I said, the way that my brain works, I get exhausted with overthinking. And I think that one of the main things right now is for me to simplify it. I do it in phases because there are other entities that have actually got the certifications and they have the past performances. And that's what I've been working on right now, just past performances to add value to the people that I'm actually partnering with. You know, to Tasha's point, you know, with a lot of the proposals that she's written and including, you know, what my company and so forth, you know what, we focus on outreach. I do a lot of outreach for a lot of municipalities and so forth. And I think that that's the main thing right now with a lot of entities, you know, outreach with the SBDC as well. And that's what actually has helped me, you know what, get past performances to build on and to add value to some of the companies that I work with. So if you can elaborate some on that, Tasha, because I know that you spend a lot of time, you know.
Yeah, we do. You know, I think Orlando's is right. Sometimes, you know, you don't have that experience. And so you get in with, you know, someone who does have that experience. And so, you know, we've done proposals where Orlando has come in to just do the community outreach portion of a scope. I'll do the rest. You know, it just depends what company can fit that specific need. But in terms of getting the experience, I think, you know, doing things with municipalities, going in and saying, okay, I can do a webinar for you, I can do a community outreach event with you, or finding out, okay, who is the person who is doing what you sell, who is doing it now for that municipality, talking to that company and saying, hey, maybe it's a company that's not local and they want to do something in the local area. You're in that area. You can add value by saying, okay, I'll be your local boots on the ground. You can, you know, be in Atlanta or wherever you are, and I'll be your person in Miami and do the work in Miami. So that right there, you are providing value to that person who's going to be, or that company that's going to be proposing, because now they can say, well, we have a local presence. A lot of times with these procurements, you'll see that you'll get points for having a local presence. So let's say I want to bid on something in Tampa. I'm not local to Tampa, but I would partner with somebody who is local to say, okay, now we can get those points and qualify for those points because our team has a Tampa business on our team. So a lot of times you'll see those local preference points, and that's one way that, you know, one very easy way that you can add value to a team as well.
Yeah, one thing is that I don't want to go at this by myself because it gets boring. The journey is more exciting when you go with other people, when you go with other like-minded people. Moving forward, listen, you know what, I'm being mindful of the time. I know that some of you may have to drop off the call, but this is being recorded. It will be, you know what, streamed on YouTube. We've got about maybe 5 slides to go moving forward, but I definitely, you know what, we're going to continue on. I knew that we were going to actually go over the time, but I figured that at the end of the day, we want to make sure we provide as much information to all of you to assist and help you. Tosh, if actually, I know that you work a lot with BidSync. If you can actually talk a little bit about that, because Vincent was asking, and we will start answering a lot of your questions live as well.
Yeah, so a lot of municipalities, they usually have their RFPs on their website, but increasingly there are companies, internet companies that have come online like BidSync, DemandStar, and BidPrime, and those that's where all of these municipalities put their RFPs. And so if you pay, those are pay services. So basically you would go on, create an account, and then search a municipality, and then you would be able to find whatever RFPs that municipality has put out. So in addition to the sites that we've already talked about on this slide, there is Bid Prime, there's Bid Sync, and Demand Star. And so you'll see, for example, you know, we're working on one with a municipality. I won't name it, but we got it from Demand Star. So you go on to Demand Star, you search for whatever you offer, like whether it's painting, public relations, whatever it is. You can search at all of the municipalities that have current solicitations for what you want. You can also look at the past solicitations, and one of the really good features of these sites is that it allows you to see what other companies downloaded the solicitation. So a lot of times if you're downloading it directly from the government website, you won't get to see all the people, they're called plan holders, people who went and downloaded the solicitation, which will allow you to gauge your competition. So that's why I like sites like BidSync, Demand Star, and Bid Prime, because they have additional features that the municipality site would not have to help you gauge whether or not you can perform this contract and who else is going after it.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I think that that's the main thing. You have to know the competition. And for me, it's like I would, those sites, you know what, actually they make me happy because I almost feel like a private investigator going in and looking at, you know, the competition and saying, yep, because remember, all of this is public information. What you are looking at, it's public information, who the buyers are, who the procurement officers are, what the bids were, what they they included, and so forth. The key thing is being strategic with what it is that you're doing moving forward. And I think that this is where we want to come in and talk a little bit about, you know, evaluating your bandwidth. And this is something when we were putting this together that Jonelle highlighted and talked about. And I think that this was extremely important because you have to right now stop, think, and breathe and realize what is my company and where is it at, especially now with COVID. I know a lot of businesses have actually had to do that in order to move forward, to pivot and so forth. And we've actually done, you know, a previous webinars on that. I think that the main thing right now is to sit back and evaluate, and you need to gauge your ability to produce. For me, I'm very mindful to everyone's point where they were talking about, you know, commitment. If you're going to say that you're going to do something, you know what, don't flake out, because that's the first way that you're going to actually, you know what, discourage people from working with you. Aside from, you know what, the federal government or even, you know, private sector, to Moises's point, you have to be committed to what it is that you're doing. And that's what you have to understand right now within your entity, your business. You know, do you have the funding, you know what, to actually go in and perform? And if you don't, where are you going to find that? So, you know what, I know that the SBDC actually helps with that. You know, Raju Mohanda said, you know, last week we did the Get Back on Track webinar. I know that Raju Assistant helps with that. So Tasha, I saw you unmute. Did you want to add something to?
Yeah, one of the things I want to add is, you know, be prepared to, you know, submit a financial statement. With a lot of these procurements, they want to know that you have the financial wherewithal to do, you know, to actually perform the work. So a lot of times they'll ask for 3 years of your tax returns or a financial statement. And you can always submit this information confidentially, so that your competitors can't see all of, you know, your financials and all of this identifying information. But you should be prepared, because a lot of times they do ask for that. So I would say definitely have a financial statement prepared in addition to a capability statement, and going back, let's say 3 years, because that's usually what they ask for.
Yeah, and thank you for that. Jonelle, could you highlight a bit what the actual capability statement is?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the resume, if you will, of the business, although not as lengthy. It's usually 1 to 2 pages, but it specifically could be morphed or amended to answer each of your RFPs, because each statement of work is a little bit different. So you may have multiple capability statements, depending on whether or not there are different NAICS codes. So that's North American Industry Classification System codes, and that's how the government groups you by industry. And it's a huge list of 6-digit numbers that tells, it's first of all, it's listed in the solicitations or the request for proposals, because it tells them that the vendor, the one that's going to be doing the work, what they're looking for. So Specifically, it's medical testing equipment, or it's construction of a general nature, or more specific construction. It really drills down what it is that they're looking for as the capability of the firm itself that would be doing the work. So you want to list all of your capabilities on that. So if you have something that, like I said, you can list, like, I think it's 20 or more different NAICS codes on your SAM profile. But you want to be specific to what you're sending that capability statement in for. There's a way to make sure that your capability statement is updated into the SBA program. If you have a profile on sam.gov, you automatically have one on DSBS, which is the Dynamic Small Business Search, which most contracting officers use in addition to SAM to try to find entities to do the contracts with. So it's all about market research. You're doing your market research to see who's going to buy your product or service, but the contracting officer also has to do their market research, because they have to show, if they've set it aside for a specific certification, that they've had enough responses to the RFPs or the sources sought in order to justify putting it into a particular certification, like a women-owned business, a veteran-owned business. They've got to show that their research was enough to show that there were many firms that could bid on it and would bid on it, which is why they send out those sources sought. Hey, we might be having a contract here. We'd like to know if you're interested and you're capable of doing this, please reply. So you're actually helping the contracting officer by informing how they can put the contract out on the street by doing those responses that Karen talked about.
Spinning off of what Janelle just said, make sure that once you set up your profile on sam.gov, don't forget about it, because you could go back and your company has changed. So if you might be doing something that you're not doing now, and then when they do the dynamic search, they'll go right over you. They'll skip you. So just make sure that your dynamic search is also up to date, which I have to update, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that that's the main thing right now. Once you make this assessment, you know what, and you understand the past performances, I think that that's the main thing right now where a lot of the businesses, you know what, once you make that evaluation and you do that moving forward, the one thing that I actually think that I really, enjoy once you do that is now searching for opportunities. I know that Karen's been answering a lot of questions, and Moises, but I think that that's the main thing that you have to look at. Now that I have and understand, I've made the assessment, I've done the research, I understand now what my bandwidth is. I know certifications, registration. Now is when you start actually searching for opportunities. Now is when you actually have to get into the nitty gritty and actually start doing stuff, because these contracts are not going to fall on your lap. If this is based on personality, that's the other thing is.
You froze up, Orlando.
Huh?
Oh, you froze. Okay.
Oh, did I freeze for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the connection. It's the internet. I'm still connected though. It says my internet is unstable. I thought it was referring to me.
Yeah, you're unstable too, but it's okay.
Well, that's true too, but
We knew that already.
Okay, thank you. Listen, we always have a backup plan. That's why I told Jonelle, just in case, have the presentation up, because the internet has been funky. You know what, for a lot of us because of the rains and so forth. But what I was mentioning is that I think that this is the time now for business owners to start researching. Now that you have everything and you collected the information, now look to see, and going back to the word that I use, intentional. It's a year of intention of who you want to work with, who you want to come in and actually go into bidding opportunities. The reason why I go in and bid with Tasha and with Karen and a couple of other entities is because I trust them, because we have a mutual respect for one another. But my thought is that you cannot go into any of these contracts or bidding, actually, proposals, RFPs, with people that you may not know. So that's why the aspect of relationship building is important. So you need to come in and start doing the research, and using some of these websites to navigate and so forth. And we have talked a lot about these. So if anybody has anything, Tasha, I'm looking at the unmute button. So
You just unmuted me. Yeah, I did answer on the Q&A, the sites that I was talking about earlier. So I just want to repeat them for everybody. So it's bidprime.com, demandstar.com, and bidsync, which is bidsync.com. And I did type it into the Q&A for everybody to see.
Yeah, and thank you. I think that that's one of the main things, and I want to actually answer your question, BB. This is a question: if your company hasn't been in business less than 3 years and still haven't made a profit, keep in mind that that's why sometimes you go in and your past performances and your experience, because that's vital. Your experience. Listen, I worked for years with Sally Mae. I did outreach. I went out and I actually went into the community and talked about entrepreneurship and financial literacy and communication, leadership, and all that stuff. So even in the private sector, I had that past performance. So maybe my thing is also partnering with someone else that may have already the financials and may have the actual, let's say, resources or connections, and maybe they just don't have the right connections, or maybe they don't have enough people to come in and go after a contract. And that's where you actually would fit well in building those relationships.
Well, the other thing, Orlando, is, as I said earlier, remember that most of the buying entities have a micro purchase program. And every micro purchase, no matter what it is, counts as a government contract that you've satisfied. So if I buy supplies from somebody, because that's what we do most of the time is buying supplies, each time we swipe that credit card, it's considered a transaction that can go on as past performance. They're small amounts, but as you heard, Moises has been able to springboard that to larger things. The other thing is the subcontracting opportunities that are listed on here. You can be very lucrative as a subcontractor and never have to worry about being a prime. There is a very big portion of government contracting that actually has to be subbed out. So, if those prime contractors have to provide subcontracting plans to the contracting officer, and they have to identify which firms they might work with. It's also, as Moises said, a way to make connections. If you're a sub on a project and you're fulfilling a portion of that for the prime, you're actually getting in front of the end user. They get to know you. You're getting in front of more than likely a contracting representative, or maybe the contracting officer themselves. And it's an entree to, again, establish the relationship, get them to know you. Again, to Moises' point, if you're responsive and you know what you're doing and you get things done in a timely manner, a lot of times the government sticks with who they know. It is hard to get the government to break away from a vendor that they're used to using. However, like we said before, if you can differentiate yourself in some way, whether it's through a certification or some other product or service that you offer that might be a little bit different or a little bit unique, that's always a way. But again, you have to be able to get noticed first. It's not just put my profile up on SAM and someone's going to come find me. You've got to be very proactive. It's all about self-marketing.
One of the things that you could do is when you start out as a subcontractor, and then there's a new opportunity, it might be 90% of the work is related to the task that you perform. And you have these different certifications that say service disabled veteran, you're an 8A, and you're a woman-owned business. You could say to the contracting officer, okay, I could perform the work, how we perform the work. And these are the vehicles in which you could assign this job to us, or that way you eliminate competition. So it's a particular job, and they'll probably write up the scope of work in the pre-solicitation with the information you've provided, because you helped them on that particular project. And this is going to be a set aside for an 8A firm. So you're now out of that pool of people that could go and bid on that job. It's specific to what you perform, and it's a vehicle that you're already in. So now you've limited your competition dramatically. So
yeah,
it's a way of building that relationship.
And that's it. And listen, you know what? I did a training for the SBA. And it was funny because it was exciting to just go ahead and swipe a card, Jonelle, to your point. I think that that's the main thing. How do you build these relationships through these opportunities? Because it's not only coming in and submitting RFPs and RFIs. I know that we've spoken to people where I've actually sent emails. I've picked up the phone and I've spoken to the procurement officers, and I've asked them questions and they've answered, because they're looking for the right entity, the right company. The one thing that you cannot be is shy when you're going after government contracting, Karen.
Yeah, I agree with Orlando. Building relationships is key. And I learned the building relationships from Orlando. I give him all the credit for where my business is right now, because he is the one that looked at me and said, Karen, you are such a dynamic person. Stop hiding behind your computer screen. Go out and meet people and talk to people and get involved in things. And so searching for opportunities is not only done on websites. Searching for opportunities, when I first got into federal contracting, I actually sat and I brainstormed, who do I know that works in the government in any capacity, any agency, any city, county, whatever. And I created a hit list of people that I knew. And I actually got this idea from being in the emerging leaders class, because one of my classmates, Margaret, was like, who do you know? She was like, call somebody and see who they know, and call somebody else and see who they know. And I actually had a friend at the time who was working with the USDA, and he was an inspector over in Tampa. And I knew he worked there because I was one of his job references, because he'd worked with me when I'd helped him get a job when I was at Kraft Foods many years before in Chicago. And so I was one of his references when he got that USDA job. So I knew he had that job. And I picked up the phone and called him, even though I hadn't spoken to him in a very long time. But I called and said, hey, I am trying to take my business in a different direction and get some federal contracts. And I know that you work in the federal government. I don't know if you guys buy what I sell, but who within USDA could you connect me with, that might be looking to have reports written or website content? And he was very honest with me. He was like, Kay, I don't know anybody. He's like, I visit farms. That's what I do for a living. The people in my office are not very technical. I don't know that I can help you within USDA. I'll ask some questions. He said, but I have a friend. And nothing to do with work, just somebody that I know, that he's an accountant, and he just left his job to go work with his best friend who has a company doing federal contracting, and they're IT, but I know they have contracts with the CDC, and I don't know how, but they're killing it. These guys are making millions. He's like, I'm gonna introduce you. Simple. I just asked, who do you know? And right off the bat, he introduced me to a company that had contracts with the CDC. And I talked to this guy and didn't know him from Adam, but he was like, oh, you're friends with that guy? Oh, he vouched for you and said that you're legit. So I'm bidding on this thing. Can I put you as a sub? I had never bid on anything. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I said, sure. He was building a website for the CDC if he got his bid accepted, and they were going to need somebody to write the medical content that goes into that website. I said, sure. I jumped on. I helped them bid. We sat together one day and figured out what information needed to go in there, and he submitted that bid. Long story short, it never got accepted, but it was an introduction where then he knows me, I know him. Then as I was bidding on other things, I was able to contact him and say, this has a website component that you have past performance with Army, with Air Force, whatever. Can I put you as a sub on my bid? And we've actually bid quite a number of things together. And then, so this is the springboard, having conversations, asking people who you know, asking people, going out to events. Now more than ever, please do the events thing, because I hated spending the money to fly to DC every time I wanted to meet somebody, because most of my contracts come out of DC and Maryland. Right now, all their events are virtual. Hallelujah. I'm doing a FDA small business fair on Tuesday, and it's all virtual, all online. They have matchmaking sessions. It's awesome. So get on the different agency websites, different office websites, see what events they have. That gives you the opportunity to get in front of people, get to ask your questions. I attended every OSDBU event, and that's the Office of Small, I don't know, I'll let you answer that, Jonelle, because I don't know what it stands for, but I know I attended every OSDBU event. So I highly recommend it.
The Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. So, but other federal agencies also have just a small business office. So for those that don't know, in federal contracting, 23% of all federal contracting has to go to small businesses. The thing is that what we were talking about before with getting different certifications, the certifications help you to winnow that pool down. We estimate that there's 30 million small businesses in the United States. Not all of them will go for the same contract as you, but you could have some pretty stiff competition. So if you get these other certifications that can help you, it helps you, but it also helps the contracting officer. They have goals for 8A. They have goals for women-owned businesses. They have goals for veteran-owned businesses. They have goals for minority businesses. Every little tick box that you can give them, as I said, in the alphabet soup of federal contracting, is a way, again, where you look appetizing to them to work with, as long as you've got the past performance and the financial capability and all of that. But those offices, the OSDBU and the small business office for each agency is set up to help small businesses to crack the nut of the federal marketplace, if you will. So they're there to help you. You know, they may not be able to get you in front of a contracting officer, but as Karen said, there are other types of events where you can get in front of them or in one of their representatives. The other thing, I wanted to say something, Orlando. For federal contractors as well, each agency puts out a forecast, which is really just their idea of how they're going to spend their money coming up. It doesn't mean it will ever actually materialize as a contract, but it does give you an idea of where that agency is putting their dollars and whether or not it's something that you could look into and market yourself to.
Yeah, and listen, and thank you so much. I think the exciting aspect of now doing all of this and researching and putting everything together and getting the certification, this is where it actually becomes, you know, the exciting aspect of writing the winning proposal. I think that the main thing is for a lot of you that are getting started, you know what, even as a startup and so forth, it goes back to the exact same thing. Do not get so crazy that you want to do all of this. I think that one of the key things is making sure that you, as an individual, you sit back and look at your strengths. I can write, but the funny thing is that I've sat down with Tasha and with Karen, and I sit there and we're talking, and in 5 minutes, I speak for you know what, 10, 15 minutes, you know what, and I'm always timing them to see how long it takes them to send me an email with the information that I just gave them, because they're online and they're typing and they're writing. So guess what? That's their strength. That's not my strength, because if I'm going to write something, it's going to take me 3 to 4 days just to get a sentence out, because did I word it right? Did I add this? Did I add that? So one thing that I've learned is to stay in my lane. And I think that that's the main thing that you have to understand. I think that this is one of the main things that I know that personally, I am not on an island. Being an entrepreneur, to Jonelle's point, is a lonely journey. But I think that this is the moment that you actually have to come in and make an assessment to see what my strengths are, what I'm good at. And if writing a proposal is not your thing, then partner with other people or outsource that, pay somebody. I know that I would actually spend money on that because it's easier. So Tasha.
And Orlando is exactly right. A lot of the times we team together, my team will actually write the proposal and put the written proposal in, but Orlando is great in the room during the presentation. We joke that I'm very antisocial and I don't like talking to people. It's a joke, but he is much better than me in the room, you know, speaking to people, and he just does a great presentation and puts on a wonderful show, you know, in front of a lot of these buyers. And so that's where his strength lies. So, you know, when you're looking to partner, most of the time you're looking to see, okay, I have all these things, but what don't I have? And what can I do better? Or who can I bring on to enhance what I'm doing? And so that's usually a lot of times I'll do the written and he'll do the actual presentation to the prospective client. So that's a good partnership so far.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Tasha. And listen, we're going to keep going. This is actually one of the last slides, Karen, to share. I don't know if we had a hard stop at 10:30 and if this stops recording, but if it does, this will be available. And the slides and all of this information we will send to you. There's a couple of slides with resources and websites and so forth, and Brianna will make sure that they send that to you. So Karen, I know you wanted to share something.
I mean, I could share for an hour on this topic alone. I would love to do another presentation just on this alone, because I feel like people are so lost when it comes to writing proposals. I deal with people that want us to write a proposal for them and they have not read the entire solicitation. When we bring information to them and tell them, here is what you need to actually be doing, they can't actually perform the work. So read, before you make a bid or no bid, read the entire thing. There's a lot of fine print, there's a lot of jargon, you know, but the most important part to read is the statement of work. And then you want to read the evaluation criteria, what they're evaluating you on. In federal solicitations, sections L and M are usually where I go straight to. I want to see what's in there and figure out the nitty gritty details and figure out, that's where I make my bid and no bid decision. L and M, statement of work, evaluation criteria, and you're good. And then when you decide to make a bid decision, you have to address every single point that they are evaluating you on. So imagine that they have a checklist. Every single reviewer of your proposal has to go through number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And if you don't have it and they can't check it and give you a score of like acceptable or not, or on a 1 to 5, you're a 5 or 4, then you can't win. So set yourself up to win. Don't bid if you're not going to at least play the game, right? So your proposal has to address every single evaluation point. And in there, you have to go into details. You can't just say, we can do this. You have to say, here's how we're going to do it. Here is who on our team is going to be doing it. Here's where we're going to do it, when we're going to do it. This is the schedule that we're going to run on. When we deliver to you, we're going to give you this report. We're going to send the invoice. You know, they need to know every single thing, because that's how they know you're detail oriented and we can trust you. Because if they don't know you and you're coming in cold, you have got to prove that you're trustworthy, you're detail oriented, and you are the right person for the job. You want to show that you've done similar projects. Anything you've done that's exactly the same or almost exactly the same, go into details. I did this project for this company, these dates. Here was our point of contact in that company. Here's their email, their phone number. You can contact them. It's great if you can show dollar amounts. If the dollar amounts are similar to the dollar amount on this, they're like, it's an exact match. You've done this before. So go into as many details as you can. And, you know, like I said, don't bid if you can't do the work. You're wasting your time, because it takes a lot of time to put these proposals together. We do a lot of these proposals for our company as well as for our clients. It's a lot of work. So definitely read and make a bid and no bid decision first.
Yeah, and thank you on that, Janelle.
Yeah, also some of the federal bids, depending on the product or the contract, they'll have pre-bid meetings. Please go to those. It's so important. And again, it's about establishing relationships. The ones that show up get their questions answered. If you actually are trying to ask a question about a proposal or a solicitation that's out on beta.sam.gov, the contracting officer by law is not allowed to answer you directly. What they do is they answer it into the solicitation itself. So you have to then go back and find that research. But if you're face to face with them, you get to ask the questions that you need to get answered. So pre-bids are good. We don't like to talk about not winning the bid, but if you don't win the bid, the other thing is that you can have a debrief, and you're actually afforded that as your right as being one of the people that tried to bid on that project. Avail yourself of that, because again, you're getting in front of the contracting people. They get to know you, understanding that they're not going to give you a huge amount of information other than what your company didn't do. They're not going to discuss a lot about the company that won it, although that's public information. But again, it gets you, any opportunity that you have to get in front of the contracting staff is what you want to take.
There's also another advantage of going to these pre-bid meetings is that you know who your competition is. When you go to that pre-bid meeting and you walk and you know, okay, out of these 10 people I know that are walking this job, 5 of these are going to be able to bid because they meet the requirements, they have the safety programs, or you've seen them before. And when you start seeing them at every pre-bid meeting, it's always that same cluster that goes, especially if it's a set-aside job. And another advantage is sometimes you have subcontractors that go to those jobs and they already know the job. They know what they'll give you a price for that portion of the job also, because they're going to give it to all the contractors instead of you using somebody that doesn't know the job. There's somebody there that does know the job, and you could get a pricing on that too, and start building that relationship. It's not just with the federal government, but it's also with the subcontractors and knowing who your competition is. You kill 3 birds with the same shot.
Yeah, and thank you. And listen, and this is actually, you know what, the wrap up right now, because we could be on this for a while and we could keep talking and keep sharing, because this is exciting, because the reason why we're doing these webinars is to help you, the attendees, you, the small businesses, and to make you understand that once you navigate this, it's about building relationships with like-minded people. So I'm just going to leave this there. We do have a couple of other slides that they're just links, resources, and so forth. So what I want to do actually is during this time, aside from having the game plan and what you see, if everybody could actually share words of wisdom, so that we can go ahead and wrap up. And once again, this is going to be available in the actual YouTube channel for the SBDC at FIU. And we're really excited about doing this, and we're looking forward to providing a couple more, and maybe doing a part 2 now with writing the winning proposal, you know, and what it entails and all that stuff. So Moises, since you're unmuted, go ahead and share your words of wisdom.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that even though we're a small business, we do have a community of small businesses. Use the resources that are out there. Use the SBA, use the SBDC, go to these different programs like the Emerging Leaders, because then you create a network of people that are like-minded, that have the desire to grow their businesses. Tasha, I have not had the opportunity to meet you, but I want to meet you. And I think that you and I could be a beneficial help.
Absolutely.
And above all things, it's a journey. Don't give up. Just stay at it, stay on your lane, stay focused, and don't get disappointed. And you just, every time that something happens and you don't achieve your goal, it's a learning experience for the following time, the next time that you're going to do something. And reach out. I reach out to Orlando all the time when I'm frustrated, and he pats me on the back and says, oh, okay, you could do it, you could do it. So Orlando's a great resource to be there, and use all the other resources. Karen is awesome too when you have something to do. Actually, Karen, I put a couple of speeches together and I had her take a look at them, and she polished them up, made them look a little bit better. So it's not just that. Use your resources, use the people that are around you, and you're definitely not really alone. Take care.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And listen, quick question for the update for all of you, Karen, Tasha, Moises, Jonelle, is it okay if I add your contact information to the slides?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. So what I'll do, and thank you, Vincent, for coming to all of these webinars, and I'll go ahead and I'll update the slides to have everyone's contact information and share with Brianna when she sends it out. So go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic. I love doing these panel discussions. The one point on here that I really want to emphasize is the takeaway is stay in your lane. For me, when I got started, I was so overwhelmed by it all, and I was trying to do everything and bid on everything, and I was like, ah. And, you know, the first contract I won was for something that I had done the exact same thing before for several different clients in the private sector. You know, I knew exactly how to price it. It was a $200,000 contract. It wasn't a $10 million contract, right? So stay in your lane. Go after exactly what you can do at a price that you know you can offer the government a reasonable price, that you're competitive. And, you know, that's where I would recommend you begin. If you're brand new to this, don't go after things that are a stretch. Don't go after things that you're like, maybe I could do this, but I've never done it before. You're not going to win it. So don't waste your time. Go after things that you know you can do. You have the experience doing this exact same thing. You have testimonials and reviews and so on from your actual customers that you've done it for. And then you're going to have a shot at it. And so just give yourself the best chance possible by really narrowing down and spending your time well on the things that you really know you can win.
Yeah, and thank you, Tasha. You know, words of wisdom.
I would say, government contracting is not easy. It gets easier once you start building a reputation for yourself, and you have a name out there in what you do. But it's going to take time to establish that. And so I would say definitely don't give up, and for sure use resources that are available, as Moises said. And yes, Moises, we will definitely meet because I think there are some synergies there, so that'll be good. So yes, definitely use, resources that you have, use your network. I think we all go to Orlando. I don't know what we would do without Orlando to listen to our frustrations and issues that we're having. So he's like, for our group, he is that person. So, definitely lean on your fellow entrepreneurs and use them as resources, because you just never know what kind of a team you can put together to go after something. And so, and Orlando and I have won contracts together. So I think, if you start looking at who in your network can help you out for a particular solicitation, and you start building that team, you can see how strong you are together versus trying to go at it on your own. So I would say use your resources and definitely do not give up.
Yes. Yeah. And thank you for all of that. I think that that's one of the main things that I really appreciate, from everyone. Moises, I know you wanted to add something because you just went unmuted.
Yes, not only even if you don't team up, there's other business owners could help you as advisors because they have a different perspective on your business. So you have an informal advisory board. You could reach out to them. This is the problem that I'm having. If it's financial, how do I get credit? Who do I talk to? And even if they're not in the same realm or in the same environment, but you could help each other in that sense. Or you have an idea. This is what I want to do. And like Orlando will say, get off of that. That's not going to work. He'll tell you straight up that these are the difficulties that you're going to have to overcome to be able to do what you want to do. So reach out to all the other entrepreneurs that they could really help you for advisory on products and things that you want to do in the future.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I'm going to give the last two to Jonelle and also Brian, so you can close. It's funny because everybody says, oh, you have to have, that trusted advisor. I've got so many people that I myself call. I know I call Jonelle continuously for anything. Jonelle and Raju and I, we spent the last month and a half, almost 2 months talking about the PPP and the CARES Act and the EIDL loan and all that stuff. And I think that that's one of the main things that you have to also, as a business owner, make yourself available and use the resources. The SBA, the SBDC, they're there to assist and help us. So why wouldn't we come in and take advantage of the resources and information? So Jonelle, if you can share some parting words, and then Brian, if you're still on, I would love for you to also. Yay, I see you now. So Jonelle, go ahead.
I'm going to give a shameless plug to SBDC as well. So as Moises and Tasha and Karen and everybody was talking about, you have to have a group that you can lean on. If you don't have that group, I have that group. That group is SBDC. Like I said, I've never owned my own small business. I can tell you about the SBA programs backwards and forwards, but you need to have different people from different walks of life to talk to about this thing. Government contracting, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So it's not gonna be done in one day. As they said, it's not an easy animal to overtake at one point. But again, take it step by step, have a plan, but don't get so bogged down that you don't execute the plan. Have faith in your abilities. I mean, you had to have faith in yourself to start your business. This is another hurdle or another obstacle that you can get over. But again, there are mechanisms in place to help you. And most of it is free. That's the great part.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And Brian, listen, thank you for the years of working with me, and I greatly appreciate it and believing in what it is that we do as business owners. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to you and wrap up. And like I said earlier, YouTube, this is going to be available. Thank you, Brianna, for working behind the scenes and being connected and doing all of this stuff. Thank you. And she will share all this information. So Brian.
Yeah. And I was going to say, that's always the toughest part, is when you're the closer on a really great webinar. It's like you have to stick the landing, like don't mess it up. You guys had a lot of really great information. Actually, I'm kind of like Jonelle. I've worked in the belly of the beast. I've worked in the federal government. I've worked in the Congress. So a lot of the stuff you guys were talking about was on point, talking about advanced acquisition plans, talking about networking with businesses, talking about all the certifications. The 3 points I want to make real quick is, like you guys said, if you're just starting into contracting, not saying you're not going to get the contract with NASA or the Air Force, but it's probably better to start small. So if you're thinking NASA or Air Force, might be better to start with City of Miami. You know, aim for have your goal on the moon, but aim for the roof first so that you can kind of get your way closer to it. And so I think that was a lot of the good advice, was kind of start local, then go state, then go federal. Utilize a lot of the research tools. A lot of the stuff is free that you can look online. I think you guys really walked them through like the beta.sam.gov and all that stuff. I did see a couple of questions on getting on the disaster response registry and things like that. Those are things that you're going to do from SAM. Once you get your SAM registration, you can get on the DRR. And then lastly, a lot of businesses are pivoting. Either you're already in government contracting and you're looking to pivot because of COVID-19, or you're not in government contracting and you're looking to pivot to kind of make your business a little more resilient. I would tell you guys, I don't want to set high expectations, but a lot of our clients that have been doing government contracting, that have already built past performance, this has been like one of their best years for a lot of the contracting they've been doing. And one of the clients, it's a law firm and they do like a lot of title services and things like that. I was like, man, what did you guys do this year? Like, what did you do? And they were like, look, we just really focused on government contracting the last couple of months, and they've been really killing it on contracts. So I think the title of the webinar is very apt, where you're saying the government is still buying, because basically the government, they always have to run. Even though there's a pandemic, they're still buying stuff. They're like, they always say from SBA, they're buying pens, they're buying training materials, they're buying, you know, advice, they're buying consulting services, things like that. So definitely research, look based on your product and service, look for your niche, but really focus on what's the value added to the government, and how can you do it? How can you do it better? And if you don't have that past performance, talk to a lot of business owners like you guys were talking about, network with groups like you guys, and you know, get those connections, because a lot of times you guys can, like SBDC and PTAC, we can help, but a lot of the stuff you guys can do is say a lot of times what to do, but also what not to do. Like, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. I spent a lot of money. I wasted a lot of time. Be more focused, focus on this. So I just want to say, great webinar, guys. Definitely would be interested if you want to do a round 2 or like part 2. And I commend you guys, because you had like 30 people and they're still on maybe like 30 or 45 minutes afterwards. So I think that's a testament to Orlando's charm and also the knowledge and expertise of the panel. So good job, and just appreciate it. And this will be posted on YouTube. So if we didn't get your questions or something, feel free to follow up with Brianna.
And listen, and to your point, I have gotten contract because of my charm.
So
I can attest to that.
Is that listed on your capability
Definitely.
statement? Do you put that at the top of your capability statement or at the bottom?
No, that's actually part of my resume, you know, my charm. I say that, listen, you know what, jokingly, but I will be very candid. Do not be afraid to be authentic and to be vulnerable when you are building relationships and so forth with the people that you want to work with. I have met some amazing people throughout my journey that as an entrepreneur, and I hope to continue building more relationships with other people. So feel free to reach out to us and communicate. So thank you, Brian, for that. We will work on part 2, part 3. Listen, we did trim the fat marketing during COVID-19. And Tasha, Macarena, and Karen and I, we already worked on the second part because people were asking for it. So now it's going to be open for business during COVID-19. And that's something that I'll send you some information on, Brian and Brianna. But I love part 2, part 3, because I think it's exciting. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Brian, Jonelle, Moises, Tasha, and Karen. And thank you, definitely, Brianna, and all of the attendees. Thank you so much.
Thank you.